Harry and Meghan are in the upswing, because what I'm hearing is people saying, well, Meghan was right. It's impossible being a member of that family. And people who think that Kate might have had some kind of a nervous breakdown, they're looking at what happened to Meghan. They're looking at what happened to Diana. And they're saying, yeah, it's impossible to live in that family. Meghan and Harry may be right. So in a way, I think in terms of their status, in terms of PR in America, it's gone up as a result of this.
How interesting, because over here all the polls are, they're getting more and more unpopular.
Yeah.
America is very important, Harvey, to the royal family, to the monarchy. I think if you took the American love of our royals away, you would be taking a very, very large chunk of their viability as a working, serving monarchy. How damaging is all this being, do you think, to the brand of the royal family and the monarchy?
I'll tell you why I think this is really damaging. That a lot of people in America, honestly, myself included, think that the royal family, it's just this stodgy group of people behind, this big wall at Buckingham Palace, and that William and Kate were kind of a breath of fresh air, that they were young, that they kind of connected to young people around the world, that they understood media. And now the way I think a lot of people are viewing this is they're using the same playbook as the 70 and 80-year-olds in the palace. And so there was this feeling and maybe even hope that William and Kate would dust off, what had been going on in the palace for years. And I think now they're kind of viewing them as part of the problem.
Welcome back to Glamstar Report, and remember to subscribe. Here is yet another interesting showdown where Piers Morgan gets shut down, and it is a moment that has truly redefined the conversation around the Sussexes. Denise Welch has officially entered the chat, and she did not hold back when responding to the heated debate that has been circling the internet like a storm. When we look at the landscape of British media, there are few figures as polarizing as Piers Morgan, but Denise Welch has proven herself to be one of the few voices capable of meeting his rhetoric with a level of common sense that resonates with the public. Denise Welch says, of course they were right. You just have to look at the years of media bullying and trolling Meghan has endured. And Piers saying, well, they're still hated over here. Of course they are, because according to the British press, she's single-handedly responsible for everything awful that happens in this world. This statement hits the nail on the head because it addresses the Meghan malady, a phenomenon where the Duchess of Sussex became a convenient scapegoat for every institutional failure within the UK. The reality is that for years, we have seen a coordinated effort to frame every action taken by Harry and Meghan as a personal affront to the British public. When they asked for privacy, they were called secretive. When they shared their story, they were called attention seekers. Denise Welch is pointing out the sheer absurdity of this double standard. It is a cycle of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Piers Morgan has built a significant portion of his late career brand on this very antagonism. By constantly reminding his audience that the Sussexes are hated in Britain, he isn't just reporting on public opinion, he's actively manufacturing it. But the tide is turning. We're seeing a massive shift in how the global audience perceives this struggle. Harvey Levin, the founder of TMZ, recently offered a perspective that serves as a sobering reality check for the traditionalists in the UK. Levin noted that Harry and Meghan are actually on the upswing. This isn't just a random observation. It's backed by the changing sentiment of people who are finally looking past the tabloid headlines. Levin said it perfectly when he noted that what he is hearing is people saying that Meghan was right along. It is becoming increasingly clear that being a member of that family is not just a job, it's an impossible existence. When we talk about the firm, we're talking about an institution that prioritizes its own survival over the mental health of its members. Levin went a step further, making a connection that has sent shockwaves through the royal community. He remarked that people who think Kate Middleton might have some kind of a nervous breakdown are looking at what happened to Meghan, and they're looking at what happened to Diana. They're coming to the conclusion that it is simply impossible to live in that family. This brings us to a very dark and reflective place regarding the Princess of Wales. For years, Catherine was held up as the gold standard of royal behavior. She was the one who played by the rules, who stayed silent, and who endured the Weighty Katie nicknames with a stiff upper lip. But as the pressures of the monarchy mount, and as the family deals with internal health crises and the absence of the Sussexes' energy, the strain on Kate has become visible to the world. If someone as seasoned and prepared as Kate is perceived to be struggling, it validates every single warning Harry and Meghan gave when they left. It suggests that the problem wasn't Meghan's American sensibility or her Hollywood background. The problem is an environment that is fundamentally toxic to the human spirit. Meghan and Harry may be right, and that realization is starting to settle in with the global public. Harvey Levin's analysis highlights that William and Kate would have been in prime position to help the failing monarchy. They were the young, vibrant couple who could have bridged the gap between the era of Queen Elizabeth II and the modern world. However, instead of leaning into that modernization, there's a sense that they have retreated. They now act like the older members of that family, adhering to a rigid protocol that feels increasingly out of step with the 21st century. By choosing to side with the old guard and maintaining a distance from Harry and Meghan, William and Kate have inadvertently inherited the weight of a system that is breaking under its own pressure. Piers Morgan tries to say Harry and Meghan move damaged the royal family, but this is a fundamental misreading of the situation. The damage was not caused by their departure. The departure was a symptom of the damage that already existed. You cannot blame the person who pulls the fire alarm for the fire. The monarchy was already facing a crisis of relevance and a crisis of character. By leaving, Harry and Meghan simply refused to be consumed by the flames. Piers Morgan's insistence that they are hated in Britain ignores the fact that they are celebrated in many other parts of the world for their advocacy, their resilience, and their willingness to prioritize their family's well-being over a title. The media bullying Denise Welch referenced is not a light term. We're talking about thousands of articles, many of which had racial undertones, and a social media environment that was allowed to spiral into pure vitriol. When Denise says that Meghan is blamed for everything awful in the world, she is highlighting the scapegoating that allowed the British press to avoid looking at the real issues within the UK. It was easier to talk about Meghan's avocado toast or how she touched her baby bump than it was to talk about the internal rot of an institution that couldn't protect a new mother from a mental health crisis. This shutdown of Piers Morgan is so satisfying because it represents the voice of the exhausted majority, the people who are tired of the constant negativity and the obsession with bringing down a couple who simply wanted to live their own lives. Harry and Meghan's upswing is a testament to the fact that you can reinvent yourself. They have transitioned from being senior royals to global icons of autonomy. Meanwhile, the monarchy back in London is struggling to maintain its footing. The absence of Harry and Meghan has left a void that cannot be filled by the remaining working royals, no matter how hard they work. The comparison to Princess Diana is inevitable and haunting. Diana was the first to show the world that the palace was a gilded cage. Meghan was the second, and now the world watches Kate with a sense of trepidation, wondering if the cage is finally closing in on her too. Harvey Levin's comments reflect a growing empathy for all the women who marry into this family. It's a life of extreme privilege, yes, but it's also a life of extreme surveillance and a total loss of agency. I like how Denise Welch responded to this because she didn't just defend Meghan, she attacked the logic of the bullies. She called out the press for their role in creating this hatred and then using it as a weapon. It is a circular argument that Piers Morgan has mastered, but it is one that is losing its power. As more people realize that the Sussex narrative was largely a fabrication of a threatened media industry, the support for Harry and Meghan continues to grow. They are no longer just a royal couple. They are a symbol of breaking free from a cycle of institutional abuse. In the end, the Glamstar Report is more than just celebrity news. It's about the cultural shifts that these stories represent. The standoff between the traditionalists and the modernists is playing out in real time, and currently the modernists, led by voices like Denise Welch and analysts like Harvey Levin, are winning the argument. The monarchy needs to realize that it cannot survive by being a museum. It must be a living, breathing, and healthy institution. If it continues to act like the older members of the family, it risks becoming a relic of the past. The bravery it took for Harry and Meghan to walk away cannot be overstated. They gave up security, funding, and a predetermined path to face an uncertain future, all while being hunted by the very press that Denise Welch described. Their success today is a powerful rebuttal to every critic who said they would fail within a year. They haven't just survived, they are thriving. And as Piers Morgan continues to yell into the void about how hated they are, the rest of the world is moving on and seeing them for who they truly are, a couple who chose love and mental health over a crown that was becoming too heavy to wear. This next chapter of the saga takes us even deeper into the mechanics of the royal machine and why the pushback from people like Denise Welch is finally sticking. To understand the gravity of this upswing Harvey Levin mentioned, we have to look at the sheer contrast in energy between the Sussexes in California and the current atmosphere at Buckingham Palace. While Piers Morgan and his cohorts in the British tabloids try to paint a picture of two people living in exile, the reality looks much more like an escape. Denise Welch's point about media bullying isn't just a passing observation. It is the fundamental truth that explains why the monarchy is currently in a state of quiet crisis. When you lose your most vibrant, relatable members because the institution refused to protect them from a literal onslaught of character assassination, you don't just lose people, you lose the future. The bullying Denise refers to was a multi-year, multi-platform campaign. We saw it in the headlines that compared Meghan's love of lilies to a threat to the throne, or the way her wedding was dissected with a level of scrutiny that bordered on the pathological. The trolling wasn't just coming from anonymous accounts on the internet, it was being spearheaded by national broadcasters and editors-in-chief. When Piers Morgan says they are hated, he is ignoring his own fingerprints on the weapon. But the narrative is failing because, as Harvey Levin pointed out, the public is starting to experience buyer's remorse regarding the treatment of Meghan. People are looking at the current state of the royal family, facing health battles, aging members, and a general sense of exhaustion, and they are realizing that the Sussex energy was exactly what the monarchy needed to survive the 21st century. Levin's mention of a potential nervous breakdown for Kate Middleton is perhaps the most chilling part of this entire discussion. It suggests that the firm is a meat grinder that doesn't care who it processes as long as the institution remains intact. If the perfect princess, the woman who did everything right, is now being spoken of in the same breath as impossible living conditions, then the entire defense of the royal family falls apart. It proves that the problem wasn't Meghan's Americanism, the problem is the job itself. Meghan and Harry were the only ones brave enough to say the emperor has no clothes, and for that they were punished. But as time goes on and the cracks in the palace walls become more visible, their decision looks less like a betrayal and more like a stroke of genius. The irony of Piers Morgan's position is that he claims to love the monarchy, yet by attacking Harry and Meghan, he has helped create the very instability he fears. By driving a wedge between the brothers and fueling the fire of public resentment, the press has left William and Kate isolated. Harvey Levin's observation that William and Kate now act like the older members is a devastating critique. It implies that the spark of modernization has been extinguished. They have been absorbed by the very protocol that they were supposed to evolve. This is why the upswing for Harry and Meghan is so significant. They represent a version of royalty that is untethered from the baggage of the past, focused on impact rather than optics. Denise Welch is essentially acting as the voice of the global conscience here. She is calling out the gaslighting of a nation. To tell a woman she is responsible for everything awful that happens in the world is a form of psychological warfare. And yet, Meghan has emerged with her dignity intact, a thriving family, and a brand that commands global attention. The shutdown of Piers Morgan isn't just a win for Meghan, it's a win for anyone who has ever been bullied by a powerful entity. It's a reminder that the truth doesn't need a tabloid budget to survive, it just needs time. As we look at the failing monarchy, we see an institution that traded its heart for a set of rules. They traded the warmth and inclusivity that Meghan brought for the cold, rigid approval of the royal rota. And now the bill is coming due. The public is looking at Diana, they are looking at Meghan, and they are looking at Kate, and they are seeing a pattern of sacrifice that no longer makes sense in a modern world. Harry and Meghan were right to leave because they chose life over a title. They chose a future where they could define themselves rather than being defined by the bitter pens of men like Piers Morgan. I love the way Denise Welch handled this because she didn't mince words. She didn't try to be balanced because there is no balance to be found in bullying. You are either on the side of the person being hunted or you are on the side of the hounds. Denise chose the side of humanity, and as Harvey Levin said, more and more people are joining her. The Sussexes are on the upswing because they are the only ones in this story who seem truly free. The monarchy, meanwhile, is left trying to explain why the perfect life they offer seems to be making everyone so miserable. The final chapter of this unfolding drama brings us to the present day, where the lines between real royalty and global influence have never been more blurred. To truly understand the weight of the shutdown Piers Morgan received, you have to look at the landscape of 2026. Piers hasn't slowed down. In fact, he's doubled down, recently labeling Harry and Meghan Sussex worms on his platform. But while he's busy inventing new insults, the world is watching a very different story play out. The upswing Harvey Levin talked about isn't just a PR buzzword, it's a visible reality. The Sussexes aren't just surviving, they are thriving on their own terms, while the institution they left behind is grappling with a profound sense of exhaustion and a lack of fresh energy. The most poignant part of this Act 3 is the contrast in how the public perceives the struggles of the two families. In London, we see a Princess of Wales who has shown incredible bravery in her recovery from cancer, movingly speaking about the moments of fear and exhaustion that come with such a journey. It's a level of transparency we've never seen from a future queen, and it's beautiful, but it also serves as a haunting reminder of the impossible life Harvey Levin described. If the system is so demanding that its most stoic members are pushed to their absolute limits, you have to ask, was Meghan right to walk away before she reached that breaking point? The public is no longer seeing Meghan as the villain who broke the family. They are seeing her as the woman who saw the cracks in the foundation before the house started to tilt. Piers Morgan tries to frame the king's recent high-profile successes as a snub to the Sussexes, but in reality, the distance between them feels less like a feud and more like two different worlds. Harry and Meghan are building a quasi-royal brand that focuses on impact, creativity, and mental health, the very things Kate is now championing as she focuses on the healing power of nature and art. It's a strange irony. The very things the Sussexes were criticized for prioritizing are now becoming the central themes of the modern monarchy's survival strategy. The freeze in relations between William and Harry remains as frosty as ever, with reports suggesting they won't even meet during Harry's upcoming UK visit for the 2027 Invictus Games preparations. But the narrative has shifted. It's no longer just about angry brothers. It's about a monarchy that has become insular and intolerant of outsiders, even those who were born into the fold. By refusing to bridge the gap, William and Kate are increasingly seen as the old guard, while Harry and Meghan are the ones who escaped the museum to live in the real world. Denise Welch's defense of Meghan is more relevant now than ever because it challenges the fundamental unfairness of the British press. While Piers Morgan rants about real royalty, Denise is pointing to the real humanity that was lost when the Sussexes were driven out. The media bullying hasn't stopped, but its effectiveness has. People are tired of the vitriol. They see a couple in California raising their children in peace, and they see a monarchy in London carrying an almost unbearable weight of duty and illness. The shutdown wasn't just a moment on a talk show, it was a cultural pivot. As we wrap up this Glamstar report, the big takeaway is that time is the ultimate truth teller. Meghan and Harry were right about the pressures, they were right about the media, and they were right to prioritize their peace. Whether Piers Morgan likes it or not, the Sussex upswing is a testament to the power of walking away from a toxic system. The monarchy will continue, and we wish the Princess of Wales nothing but strength in her newfound focus on healing, but the lesson of the last few years is clear: no crown is worth your soul.
I love how Denise Welch keeps the fire under the feet of the bullies. She's not just defending a duchess, she's defending the right of every person to say enough is enough. Thank you for following this deep dive. The story of the Sussexes, the Waleses, and the media that surrounds them is far from over, but for now, the message is clear. The truth is on the upswing. Remember to like, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts on this royal saga in the comments. We'll see you in the next report. Thank you for watching.